Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome with the sequel of interviews in the frame of the Symposium 2021 of the ECSEL Joint Undertaking. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us Ms. Cutajar. She is MEP, member of the European Parliament. She is a member of the ITRE committee, and what is even more important for us, she is a shadow rapporteur for the SBA, the Single Basic Act, the founding document of the next generation joint undertaking, ECSEL KDT. Ms. Cutajar, very welcome with us. For your
it's my pleasure being here with you today. Thank you for the invite, and I look forward to the discussion we'll have.
Yeah, and for your information, I have to indicate that many things of the ECSEL Joint Undertaking Symposium started in Malta, and many of the people, the audience, may well remember the very nice first symposium we had in Malta, and I'm sure even maybe more the social event we organized with the tour, the boat tour in the harbor of Valletta. So we kind of started in Malta, and with you at this moment we probably the last symposium of the ECSEL Joint Undertaking. Welcome with us, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions which I'm sure are in the scope of your mandate and your point of interest. First is that the COVID has learned us that the digital transformation, the digital technology is a must, and the digital transformation is a need for industry, for society. But we need to be sure that the values and the people are being kept respected in this digital transformation, and that we keep control on the human aspect of this one. So how would you believe can we implement this, or what are the points of concern for this aspect?
Yes, it's a very pertinent question indeed, and it's important to keep in mind the balance that we need to strike between regulating on the one hand, and it's important to regulate because regulation provides legal clarity for all stakeholders, whether it is the consumers, whether it is the investors. So it's important to have regulation, and Europe also could have an edge when it comes to regulation in the digital field, and it could become a digital leader from this side of things, whilst balancing out on the importance that we can never sacrifice principles, including the importance of human beings and human-centric technology. And even in the files we're working upon at the European Parliament, we always emphasize the importance of having, for example, human-centric AI, of having non-discriminatory technologies being applied without biases. We know how AI could have several biases, including when it comes to gender and the racial context, and therefore we need to address this. So this is a very pertinent question, and we have to look at how to regulate whilst keeping and maintaining our principles. And I believe that Europe has in front of it a challenging time in achieving this, but yet a very important opportunity to be at the forefront of this regulation, which is fair, non-discriminatory, and unbiased, and keeping also the aspect of human-centric technologies at its core.
I take from this that it's not only the market who should be guiding, how to say, the industrial business, but there are also social borders, social limit, where regulations is of crucial importance, and that is also directly affecting, I think, the activities we are dealing with. The next, how to think, major challenge we have at the moment in Europe, in the whole world, is the global climate change, and Europe has a plan ready with the Green Deal, trying to address this. The Green Deal is very ambitious, and the digital technologies obviously are one key to help. Yeah, we should green our own digital world, but the digital world will also help to green the rest of the world, if I may say. Things cost a lot of money. Resources are necessary to achieve this. Yeah, how can we bring more of these resources together to realize the European Green Deal in the most efficient way?
First of all, it's essential to keep in mind that these global challenges, which Europe is also facing and which Europe is trying to be at the forefront of even being a leader when it comes to the green transition, require the efforts of everyone. And when I say of everyone, the policymaker cannot make it on its own. This would require the efforts of the citizens. It would require the efforts of governments, local governments, EU institutions, global players, along with industry. And this is why partnerships such as the joint undertakings under Horizon Europe are very much key in this regard. And when we speak of joint undertakings and partnerships and collaborations relating to digital technologies, they are even more key because we know how digitalization could, if implemented well, help towards Green Deal objectives. And we need to keep this in mind whilst making policy, whilst seeking collaborations, whilst incentivizing research and innovation, and whilst incentivizing collaborations such as partnerships. And yes, when it comes to the issue of budgeting, our priorities on an EU level relating to the twin transition of green and digital need to be reflected also in the budget, obviously. And I have no doubt that as you are following as much as I do, they are being reflected. Is it enough? For sure, there's much to do. And we need to make sure that we really leave no one behind in this transition. We need to make sure that our SMEs transit effectively, all regions transit effectively, and where we find sections of the industry or sections of our regions or sections of our citizens that will be more affected, we need to help them even more. And I wanted to bring up a figure here where Horizon Europe is very ambitious in this regard also. And it's important to remember that there are more than 50 billion euros under the Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe over the next 7 years, precisely to increase the European industrial competitiveness and also to make it live up with the global challenges of our times. So yes, Horizon Europe is a very important instrument in this regard, as are the joint undertaking and the private-public partnerships. And we need to continue working in this important field to make sure that we really achieve our climate targets, but also our digital targets. Let's remember that the European Commission has put forward a very ambitious agenda when it comes to the digital decade, and this would be helping when it comes not only to the digital transformation, but even the green transformation.
Thank you. It's really a tandem to have these two aspects transferring at the same time, the twin transition, the digital and the green at the same time, two challenges. And we do need to work together and leave nobody behind. But it also has to go quickly. Yeah, and if we see what the climate is doing, we always underestimate the speed that the global climate change is actually happening. On the other side, also digital technology development is going very, very quick. So how can we align next to the speed of climate and the speed of digital, development, also the speed of decision making, because that is not really the quickest process we have here in Europe. Yeah.
Now, this is not an easy question to find a solution towards, may I first admit, because it's a reality. And if we want to be pragmatic and practical, we have to start by admitting that it's not easy to achieve a very difficult balance between regulating and doing policy in a way which keeps up with the technological developments, which are fast evolving, in line also with the urgencies that we face when it comes to the twin transition. So let's start by, first of all, recognizing this fact that it is a challenge indeed, and that we cannot be unrealistic to say that it's not a challenge. And saying that, however, will bring us to the next point of what, as a policymaker, maybe is my view on how to achieve this balance. And I turn once again towards the aspect of legislation and policy. When we legislate, we need to keep in mind that the technology is fast evolving. And this is a very important aspect. It doesn't mean that we don't legislate. It's true that the process is very long sometimes, and this is a question of democratization too, and democracy, and negotiating and finding compromises, which is not always easy because you have persons coming from different political groups, persons coming from different nationalities, and along with that baggage, every policymaker would have their own personal baggage to bring on board. And therefore, it's a question of combining agility along with not giving up on principles, as long also to keep in mind the importance that when we legislate in this field or the policy in this field, we have to look at technology neutral solutions, for example. We have to look at a way of legislating whilst keeping in mind how to then quickly adapt that legislation via legal means if there are technological developments. And we have to have foresight. We have to keep in mind that with every legislation we put forward, with every clause, every amendment, we have to keep in mind what if this technology evolves in a way that we are not foreseeing. Now we cannot know the future exactly for sure, but it's important to keep this aspect always in mind. And we need to strike a balance as regards regulating to ensure that there is legal clarity in the market, whilst on the other hand, balancing out with the aspect that we regulate where it matters. We regulate where it comes to keeping our principles firmly in place, even when it comes to GDPR, data privacy, for example, when it comes to other important aspects. But we also have to keep in mind that we have to allow that leeway for these fast evolving technologies so that this legislation and policy making will not instantly become outdated. And to share an example from the SBA process of the Single Basic Act we are undertaking today, where just after this interview, I'll be off towards another shadows meeting. It's a complex process. So for example, it's a Single Basic Act, and its process and its negotiations have seen more than 1,000 amendments, and more than 1,000 amendments with a strict time limit to negotiate is not easy. And we're having a lot of meetings, not only on a political level, but also a lot on the technical level. And this is a process I'm explaining to keep in mind that whilst we all have this urgency, there are a lot of different aspects and layers which need to be fulfilled. And therefore, the key reply at the end is that we have to try and constantly achieve this not so easy balance, but we have to keep on striving. We cannot just say it's difficult and that's it, but we have to recognize it's difficult, but continue striving efficiently to achieve it.
Thank you, and I take from this positive reply, indicating that indeed it is a difficult democratic process, that foresight is important. Yeah, is trying to anticipate as much as possible any regulations and start very early the whole process. So when you start early, you can finish early, rather than when you start late, you finish obviously a little later. Thank you for this this reply. Maybe another one, difficult one, I think, is the question on gender balance in the industry, which traditionally often is said to be very masculine, but now there is a strong trend of bringing in, how to say, a gender balance, because we need all the good people to work on this one. We have tried this in the joint undertaking. Yeah, it's proven not to be very easy. Any advice you can give us to help to get quicker to an equal gender balance in the ECS, the electronic components and systems sector?
Yes, let's start from the aspect that when we speak about gender balance and when we speak about being at the forefront of the technological development in general also, we need to think about skills. And the skills bring me on to another point, which is STEM careers, STEM education, and the opportunities that they offer. And I believe that we have to keep this in mind. We say it and repeat it all the time, it's true, but it is very important to actually invest in these skills. And yes, we have a gender gap that we have been speaking about for some time, and even at the European Parliament recently, during last plenary, there was even a debate about this important aspect of STEM careers, which we have to keep in mind. And as an ITRA committee, gender mainstreaming rapporteur myself, I push a lot this aspect. And we even discussed it in a workshop organized at the European Parliament precisely last week, speaking about the gender aspect, how to address it, even when it comes to key technologies such as AI. And this is very important. We have missing female entrepreneurs, we have missing female programmers, we have missing females when it comes to STEM careers. And we have to keep this in mind along with the European Commission skills agenda and the targets for the digital decade. And indeed, although I know that it's a challenge, we, as I said earlier on with regards to the other aspect, we cannot give up on it, and we need to effectively deliver in this aspect. And it's important to eliminate gender stereotypes. And to eliminate these gender stereotypes and certain cultural discouragement, it's important to promote role models. We have positive role models in reality when it comes to females in this aspect. And I believe that these role models could play a very important role in incentivizing more girls to take up STEM education and STEM careers, or people who are already in the market to focus on becoming programmers, for example, which is important. This would have a ripple effect in reality. Why? Because having females at the forefront, even when it comes to the governing boards of the joint undertakings, for example, will then bring a change in and of itself, because we know that females and males think in different ways. And this is a question of diversity and achieving a better product and service at the end of the day. And this is very important to keep in mind. We have statistics showing us that when you have governing boards, which are, for example, more gender balanced, or you have gender balanced employees at the workplace, it's amazing how results could be more effective. And we need to keep this in mind. It's not only a question of having more females just for the sake of it, but it's a question of inclusivity and of believing that this would lead to better programming, to less bias in AI, for example, to having key digital technologies developed in a way which could enhance this more inclusive gender balanced aspect. And yes, that's it from my end. And what I wanted to conclude upon, that this is a very aspect which is it's very at heart for myself, and I'll continue promoting it, both when it comes to the work I'm doing on the joint undertakings and the public-private partnerships under the Horizon Europe, but even beyond. And it's important that, yes, we'll have even males on board. And thank you for the question that you posed yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe a last wrapping up question to conclude our interview, and maybe more simple for me. What would be on your first point on your wish list? If there's anything you could ask me as the director of the joint undertaking, how can we help you as an MEP? How can we help the Parliament better to achieve some of your objectives? What would be one of your first questions to me as the director or the governing board?
You asked me two questions in this interview, which I'd like to replicate on your side. I gave my ideas and my perceptions as a policymaker, but it would be great if you could give me the ideas from the industrial point of view, because I know that the industry adapts quickly to the aspect of the fast evolving technology, but it would be great to hear from your end what is industry doing? What are some good practices where industry has managed to adapt to the quickly evolving digital market, to the effects of the pandemic, and quickly adapting its way of work towards still working in an efficient and effective manner? And how can we include SMEs in this fast evolving process to also not only keep up, but to take the maximum potential when it comes to this aspect of the fast evolving opportunities that lay within the technological developments that we need to make?
That's also a difficult question you return to me. Related to the involvement of the SMEs, I believe it's most important that we serve the SME participants in reaching their objective of participating in a joint undertaking program, which is mainly to get into a value chain. Yeah. What is important for small companies is that they get known by the bigger companies as a good professional, competent supplier in the value chain of producing any technology, in our case specifically digital technology. So known by the bigs, but also having the opportunity to display their capacity, yeah, to let them understand what they are capable of supplying with. And that's why just this type of collaborative projects are so useful. Yeah, we bring in some money and we trying to make this ecosystem with the big companies, with the SMEs, the smaller companies, the mid caps, and some of the RTOs and universities as a well flourishing ecosystem. Yeah, where everybody has his key role to play, and bringing the SMEs in obviously would allow them to grow and grow quicker. Why the industry is good in achieving high speed is that they are, how to say, show an agility and a dynamism which is, how to say, market driven. Yeah, they make a plan and they execute the plan in a very, very systematic and a very organized way, financially driven, often financially driven. What I think we have to be conscious about is that not all the products which are made are directly serving policy goals. And like you sometimes have in management discussions or debates, is that you should not necessarily give what people are asking for, but you should give what people are needing. And if we are trying to address the Green Deal discussion at large, we should really come up with technologies which are serving reaching the objective of the Green Deal and allowing people to pollute less, yeah, in all different ways. And we should bring this. It's not going to be a cheaper exercise. It's not going to be an easy exercise, but policy should help us to drive this process of bringing these technologies on the market. And by that, a little, how to say, counterbalancing sometimes the too high speed of bringing new project and new products and new products and new products on the market, which is sometimes too much a consumption model. There should be a clear balance on this one. Obviously, we can continue on this discussion on why industry is doing what they are doing and how they should be counterbalancing. But what I may well want to remark is that in the programs we are doing in a joint undertaking, and especially in the ECSEL joint undertaking, we have the public authorities, the European Commission, and our participating member states on one hand, and we have the industry on the other hand. And we really have often a clear debate on what should be guiding principles to rule our technology development. And we are in the heart of having these discussions at the right platform on how we need to steer our program to achieve not only the policy, but also the industrial objectives in kind of harmony and in synergy. And that's why I always believe that the most important word in our name is the joint. We're really trying to do these things together. We're doing this for the digital, but as you know, there are many other joint undertakings who have similar ambitions, different technical fields, but it's very similar ambitions. It's part of the answer. Obviously, we can discuss at length further to this. Ms. Cutajar, I thank you very much for your availability and your insightful thoughts on the questions. I very much appreciate having worked with you around the Single Basic Act and your help in having this process landing safely. Thank you very much, and we appreciate your presence here.
Thank you very much for the invite. It was a pleasure. I hope that also those who will follow it will find it informative enough. And let's keep in mind that we can get there in a better way if we do it jointly. And therefore, it's important to keep this in mind.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.